I know most of my audience, they are not big tennis fans. I am a huge tennis fan. I'm a huge tennis player. I've been playing tennis my entire life, and the Grand Slams are some of my favorite sporting events of the year to watch. And Novak Djokovic yesterday wrapped up the French Open by winning at Roland Garros, claiming his 19th Grand Slam for his career. Second title at the French Open. It was an absolutely magical display. The best superlative to describe Novak Djokovic is unbreakable. This guy, his relentlessness and unwillingness to cave and the fight and the grit that he shows was absolutely tremendous to watch. And now it pulls him within one Grand Slam of Rafael Nadal and Roger Federer for the most all time with 20. Second time, as I mentioned, he's won at Roland Garros. And he rallied for the second time in this tournament from 2 sets down. He beat Stefanos Tsitsipas in the finals in a 5-set thriller that lasted over 4 hours and 15 minutes. He lost the first set 6-7, 2-6, then won 6-3, 6-2, 6-4. And just 2 days prior, he beat Rafael Nadal, the number one player, the number one player on clay, he eliminated Rafael Nadal, who's won 13 Grand Slams on the clay courts. In fact, a statue was just made to commemorate his greatness in France and on these clay courts that was just erected just outside of the main Phillips Stadium. And he knocked him off in the semifinals in a match that also lasted 4 hours just 2 days prior. So 48 hours later, he played 2 tennis matches that lasted 8.5 hours. He trailed Lorenzo Musetti in the 4th round by 2 sets, and he came back to win. In fact, he was he was just absolutely fantastic. And by the way, for Rafael Nadal, that was just the 3rd time in 108 matches that he's lost at the French Open. Just the 3rd time in 108 matches. But this is the one thing. So now Djokovic, he's got 2 French Open. He's got 9 Australian Open titles, 5 Wimbledon, and 3 U.S. Open to equal 19. Now, this is why I love tennis so much, is because tennis is one of those few sports along with golf, Motor One, NASCAR, where the individual players can determine the outcome of the game. I was just talking about how Nikola Jokic and the refs can sometimes determine the outcome of a game with fouls. But in tennis, you have to execute. You have to hit every single shot. You have to be the one to provide the energy to make the plays. Can't rely on anyone else. It's only you out there on the court, you and your opponent. That's it. You have no one else to turn to but yourself. If you need to step up, if you're trailing, you need to create the play. You need to create the magic for yourself. And Novak Djokovic, the one thing that I've always admired about him, he's the best returner of serve that I've ever seen. He literally gets to everything. His ability, the pliability of this guy on his return of serves is second to none, because he'll get back every single shot. He'll get back every single shot, and it always amazes me when you watch him that how quickly he can turn from defense to offense, to be falling off the side of the court, lobbing, you going to a defensive lob, shuffling back into the middle of the court to get back into play. And if the opponent's volley or overhead isn't crisp enough, he'll take it down the line for a winner. Or if they try and drop shot him right over the net, he'll sprint over there and he'll get there. And you look at his toolbox and the repertoire that he has at his disposal, and there are no flaws in his game. There are absolutely no flaws in his game. Now, I will say this. Roger Federer, to me, is the greatest tennis player of all time. I will say that. I think that sometimes it's a little bit misleading when you look at the head-to-head matchups because many of those games, many of those matchups came in some of the later years of Federer. There is at least a 6-year age difference between Novak and Federer. So Federer was playing Novak Djokovic oftentimes out of his prime and in Djokovic's prime. But I will say this. Novak Djokovic, it's hard to argue against him being the greatest player of all time. He is putting together a resume that right now has been percolating for years. And to me, I understand he's only one Grand Slam short of Rafael Nadal, but to me, I think I have him ahead of Rafael Nadal precisely because 13 of Rafael's 20 Grand Slams came on the clay courts. Only seven Grand Slams across the other three. And you look at Federer and you look at Djokovic, they've demonstrated dominance and consistency across all the other three courts that you can play on. The Australian, hard court, US Open, hard court, and Wimbledon's obviously grass. But I've just been so impressed. We are so lucky and blessed. Generic fans, casual fans, they don't understand that we're watching the three greatest tennis players of all time, at least on the men's side. Actually, in the women's side too, with Serena Williams. We're watching the greatest tennis players of all time. And it's important to appreciate those players. And to watch Djokovic battle and grind the way that he did was nothing short of spectacular. Again, if he doesn't have a temper tantrum, that's the biggest issue. The only flaw in his game is mentally, perhaps with his temper, because if he doesn't go berserk in the U.S. Open, and if he's not disqualified and he doesn't decide to hit a line judge with a ball straight into the neck, he probably wins that U.S. Open, given that Rafael Nadal and Roger Federer weren't playing in the tournament. And right now, he could be sitting at 20 Grand Slams, potentially. So we'll see what happens at Wimbledon in 2 weeks. That's going to take place in 2 weeks. I know Federer pulled himself out after advancing to the fourth round. He understands his body, he understands it wasn't time to play. But this was about Novak Djokovic. And again, just unbelievable performance from him this entire tournament. And major shout out to him and his team. 19 Grand Slams, absolutely fantastic. Okay, final topic of the day.